Right, so there's a difference between boldness and blundering, but Benjamin Netanyahu seems determined to blur the line. Still fresh from a bruising 12-day war that left Israel's defences threadbare, its economy reeling, and its deterrence in tatters, Netanyahu now appears ready to reload and relight the fuse as he trundles off, no doubt with his dirty washing in tow, as per usual, to Washington, and yet another meeting with the bloviating orange oaf that passes for US President Donald Trump. The target, as if you need to ask, is Iran again. Rationale for it this time, though? Well, it's rather thin, given Iran's nuclear research program remains very much offline right now. And the timing? Strategically, it seems rather suicidal. As Israel faces the most precarious military and fiscal moment in a generation, its Prime Minister isn't leading from strength, he's sprinting from weakness, hoping that yet another war will do what diplomacy, deterrence, and domestic credibility no longer can: keep his sorry backside in power. But is Israel really in any shape militarily and financially to keep him where he wants to be? Can Israel afford Benjamin Netanyahu any longer? Right, so as Israel still reels from the aftershocks of its first direct military confrontation with Iran, Benjamin Netanyahu is already back to rattling the sabers, it seems. Reports amid his latest trip to the US appear to confirm that he is actively seeking support from Donald Trump for a renewed strike on Iranian targets, even as Israel's air defense systems teeter on the brink of exhaustion and the economy struggles under the weight of prolonged warfare. With no immediate Iranian threat and the Islamic Republic's nuclear program temporarily disabled, the case for another Israeli assault is as flimsy as it is dangerous right now. All this talk of more war with Iran, what we're witnessing is not strategy but desperation. A toxic cocktail of Netanyahu's political self-preservation, ideological rigidity, and a level of recklessness that can be catastrophically self-defeating. 12-day missile war with Iran last month left Israel's defences, economy and global standing completely shattered. According to the Wall Street Journal, the nightly cost of missile defence operations reached $285 million, with a total war bill already exceeding $20 billion. Iran's barrage of ballistic missiles, including advanced Sigil and Fatah-class projectiles, overwhelmed Israel's Iron Dome, David Sling and Arrow 3 air defence systems, inflicting direct hits on 5 military bases and other critical targets, including the headquarters of the IDF intelligence, Unit 8200, and the Bayzan oil refinery in Haifa. Runways at Tel Nof and Nevatim were temporarily put out of commission, severely impairing the Air Force's response capacity. Iran's strikes exposed what had long been obscured by all the Israeli military bravado we've become accustomed to, that their famed air defense architecture definitely had limits. The Cradles recently reported that the Arrow 3 system is running dangerously low on interceptors, as is the US-provided THAAD system. Internal documents suggest stocks may last for only 12 more days if renewed hostilities break out. Meanwhile, Israeli defense and finance ministries are in open conflict over how to fund urgently needed resupply, with Israel's defense ministry requesting a $17 billion emergency package, and finance, bearing in mind the finance minister is Bezalel Smotrich here, is balking at the long-term implications of it. The situation has had serious consequences not just for Israel's battlefield resilience, but for its deterrence image. For decades, Israel has cultivated a reputation of invincibility because of its air defences, world-beating. But in this latest conflict, Iran not only penetrated Israeli airspace, it demonstrated that it can inflict sustained, significant damage whilst doing so. This shift in perception may embolden regional adversaries and diminish the psychological barrier Israel once enjoyed over its foes. So when it comes to the question of whether or not Israel can afford to go to war with Iran again, the answer is basically no, not without incurring generational economic harm. Credit ratings agency Moody's have recently warned Israel's fiscal deficit is projected to balloon past 6% of GDP, well above its legally mandated 4.9% cap. The economic strain is compounded by the war's broader ripple effects: capital flight, declining consumer confidence, a slowdown in their high-tech exports. According to Reuters, domestic economic growth forecasts have been slashed from 3.2% to barely 2%. The costs of interceptor missiles alone are staggering. Each of the Arrow 3 missiles can cost between $3 and $4 million, whilst David Sling interceptors come in at around $700,000 each. With hundreds of intercepts required during the exchanges with Iran, if you take Israel at their word, and they usually only big themselves up, bear in mind, the economic impact of defensive operations alone is unprecedented. Wartime expenditures have already forced the government to issue US dollar-denominated bonds and draw heavily on US military aid, but even Washington's going to have limits. Israel's dependency on the US for missile resupply and financial guarantees is reaching unsustainable levels, especially as US policymakers grow wary of being drawn into yet another regional conflagration with unclear exit strategies, because Netanyahu never plans for one. He doesn't really want any, does he? He wants to keep it going, keep himself in power. There's more war fronts getting opened each time. While Israel and the US seemingly did inflict serious damage on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure in June, Tehran has not been knocked down, it's only been bloodied. Iran is actively rebuilding air defences and dispersing command structures to limit vulnerability. They've apparently been moving their missiles around. More importantly, its missile production capacity remains intact as well. In one astonishing claim, IRGC advisor Major General Ebrahim Jabari told Anadolu Agency that Iran retains the capability to strike Israel with ballistic missiles daily for up to 2 years. Contrast that with Israel only having about 12 days left of interceptor missiles. Now that might be an exaggeration, but you wouldn't want to bet on it, would you? It's also worth noting that Iranian retaliation during the last exchange was highly calibrated. Tehran demonstrated both restraint and capability, opting for precision over devastation, while the Israeli death toll was significantly lower than the Iranian one, under assault by indiscriminate Israeli fire as Iran was. But a second unprovoked Israeli strike may erase that restraint, pushing Iran into broader escalation. They've actually said if it happens again, there'll be no red lines. So in that context, Netanyahu's gamble looks less like deterrence and more like provocation that could spiral rapidly out of control, and with Israel less capable of defending itself. Critically, there's no imminent Iranian threat to justify any renewed Israeli aggression. Iran's nuclear facilities have been severely damaged. By Iran's own admission, they will be offline for months. By Israeli and US estimates, for at least 1 or 2 years. Enrichment activities have stalled, and although that arguably can't be confirmed with Iran having thrown the IAEA out of the country now, Iran remains committed to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. That should count for something. Not that that bothered Israel or the US last time, of course. To strike Iran now is to strike because of what it might do someday, unjustified even as that is, rather than any present danger. As Axios and the Financial Times have noted, even Donald Trump, who greenlit previous Israeli strikes, has not formally endorsed renewed conflict, at least not yet. A new war would thus lack not only international legal justification, but also unified political support from Israel's most vital patron. Though, of course, Netanyahu is reportedly there, of course, very much working on that. It also violates basic principles of international law. Anticipatory self-defense requires credible, imminent threats, not hypothetical worst-case scenarios. And even if such a justification can be conjured, it would not survive scrutiny under the UN Charter or the Court of Global Public Opinion, who in larger numbers are no longer being sucked in by Israeli propaganda. Israel risks not only strategic failure, but diplomatic isolation. So why is Netanyahu pushing for it? Well, the answer is, of course, the same as it always says. It's nothing to do with national security and everything to do with his own political survival. Besieged by a corruption trial he's been running away from for years, eroding coalition unity and widespread public fatigue, Netanyahu sees war as a way to silence dissent, delay accountability, and posture as Israel's indispensable protector, rather than the craven self-serving instigator that he actually is. Netanyahu is, it is claimed, actively lobbying Trump to provide diplomatic and possibly military backing for yet another strike. The calculation is very simple, and it is also deeply cynical. Provoke Iran, trigger retaliation again, and then force US entanglement on the assumption that Trump will protect Israel at the end of the day, and possibly he might benefit electorally from the ensuing chaos. Well, even Trump chose a different path last time, and it certainly isn't making him more electorally popular, going as far as he did last time. The cost of Netanyahu's political survival is the strategic stability of the entire region. No democracy should ever allow one man's legal or electoral jeopardy to dictate foreign policy, much less decisions of war and peace that affect the entire Middle East. And unlike the last round, Iran may not hold back. As I said a moment ago, they've claimed there will be no red lines if Israel attack them again. The Atlantic Council has warned that further escalation could push Tehran to abandon nuclear restraint entirely, especially if it perceives coordinated Israeli-American efforts as existential to them. Thus, the very war Israel claims would enhance security could instead result in and accelerate the damage already done to them. Israeli society is not monolithic. Public sentiment following the first war showed deepening divisions. Reservists complain of inadequate preparation. Other IDF soldiers are suffering from significant mental health issues. Civilians protested at being kept in, trapped essentially in the line of fire as they were stopped from leaving Israel, as others managed to flee in boats to Cyprus. Calls for Netanyahu's resignation have intensified. So to plunge the country into another conflict under these conditions is to ignore not only military logic, but the popular will as well. There is also the chilling democratic toll. Wartime emergency measures have been used to silence dissent, restrict press freedom, and postpone parliamentary oversight. If Israel moves towards perpetual preemptive warfare, it risks becoming a militarized democracy in name only, governed not by law but by the logic of fear, as if Netanyahu wasn't despotic enough already. Benjamin Netanyahu is steering Israel towards a cliff, and I imagine few people right now shed a tear over that. The first war with Iran revealed serious cracks in Israel's military, fiscal, and strategic architecture. They were nowhere near as prepared as they thought they were. Another war, especially unprovoked again, would not patch them up but erode them further. It would shatter what remains of Israel's deterrence, economy, and international legitimacy, and the country may simply not survive that. The argument for war now is built not on necessity, but on Netanyahu's fantasy. That Israel can afford what it cannot, that Iran is defenseless when it isn't, that deterrence is restored through recklessness rather than restraint. Netanyahu is not safeguarding Israel's future, he's mortgaging it. In a region Israel has already set ablaze from Gaza to the West Bank to Syria to Lebanon to Yemen, the last thing the world needs is yet another spark, especially one lit by a man holding a lighter in one hand and a petrol can in the other, ready to dose as many countries as he needs to save his own political career. Making the whole situation that bit more volatile is news of a congressional bill progressing to give Israel the means to bomb Iran's nuclear sites itself with B-2 bombers and the bunker busters that did such damage to the sites at Natanz, Isfahan and Fordo, last time done for Israel by the US. But if this passes, Israel could strike itself in the same way whenever it wished. Far from wondering if Israel can replenish what it has lost, all new weaponry could be about to be provided to them, provided to Netanyahu of all people, with all the threat that presents. Get all the details of that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated. Holding power to account for ordinary working class people. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.